Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 7-1 Real Forno Show. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We're going to talk about the resiliency of this team, how icy Kirk Cousins is, and the main reason why you should not be upset or even surprised considering Danielle Hunter's play this season, because he's arguably been the best player on this team. Welcome to the Real Forno Show.
Welcome to the Real Forno Show. Managing editor of the USA Today's Vikings Wire. Betting and college football analysis for the Fantasy Points website. Publisher of Substack Run and Shooter. Host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, as well as a member of Climbing the Pocket.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Forno Show. I am your host, Tyler Forno. So with me in the corner, as always, is producer Dave. Dave, we have a wild Odie running around the office tonight. We're going to have a little bit of fun, making sure he doesn't destroy my chair any more than he already has. But he's a rambunctious little fellow that's just woken up from a nap. How are you, sir?
I am good. It's Monday in Austin, Texas. A little warm and muggy, but that'll change by the end of the week when we have winter coming.
Very fair. I'm really excited to hear about your year-long low of 35 degrees.
We're not going to get that low, but it will be in the 50s for highs, which is long sleeve and jacket weather for Texans.
Oh, you poor thing. You absolute poor thing. Dave, let me ask you an off-topic question, because tomorrow is election day. What is the funniest ad that you have seen so far on TV? Like, we all know that these ads get really ridiculous, and like they do anything they can to attack the other side, and they usually are like so bad that they're funny. Have you seen any really good ones down in Texas this year?
I ignore them purposely.
Oh, that's even better. Minnesota's are absolutely atrocious, and I love there's one representative, Angie Craig, who's running for re-election, and any attack ad on her, she just looks like she's got the most angry face in the world, and she's like yelling and pointing. I'm like, wow, you're really trying to make her look good. And it's the ads themselves are hilarious to me because they're so bad. Like, I don't even pay attention to them because why are you spending money on this? Because they're just not good. 69 degrees sounds absolutely tremendous.
No, he's drinking Fighting 69th is what he's indicating.
Oh, that's even better. He listened to your recommendation, Dave. I have not had a chance to try it, and I'm excited to get a chance to do
It's got to be shipped to you, and it can be shipped to Minnesota. Minnesota is not one of the states that is banned from shipping in whiskey. But there's no sellers in Minnesota.
Yeah. Maybe if I tell them that I still run a liquor store, I'll get a free bottle so I can sample it.
Try. Can't hurt.
It's worth a shot. In the meantime, listen, we are living in Elon Musk's Twitter, and it is a hilarious place. And we are going to have some fun here tonight on the Real Forno Show because the Vikings are 7-1. And Dave, I'm going to give you a chance to pull it up just in case people haven't seen Kirko, the rapper, partying on the plane.
I did not rip that video, but he was, with the chains, the ice. I'm all for him.
Listen, he is living his best life this season, and kudos to him. He feels comfortable to be his dorky self. Listen, it took me about 25 years to figure that out. And as far as being an NFL player, it took Kirk 10, so he's doing better than me. And he is having fun. The team has embraced him, and they understand, like, he is just a dorky dad, and they are all having a good time. And I love it. It's great. And you know what the best part was? Like, he was obviously shirtless this time when he was wearing all those chains. And he's got an 8-pack. So he went on Pat McAfee's show today, and they asked him about it. And he said, I'm going to have to pull up the exact quote.
But he got it in college.
Yeah. No, it was the initial quote, like the first few lines that he said to McAfee, because it was just peak. Oh, I have always been absolutely strapped, meaning he's always had that. I'm like, dang, Kirk, let's go. Like, and he talked about it, and it's something that was really interesting, and you don't necessarily think a lot about. College weightlifting programs are meant to just get you looking beach ready. Like, that's kind of what bulk up, but they don't really do a lot of flexibility stuff, and that kind of stuff really helps you like maintain in the league. So I found that very interesting, and he ain't wrong. There's a reason why Tom Brady's still playing as well as he is at age 45, and proving that Matt Stafford is truly Matt Stafford. And like, I kid, but
he's got a ring.
You know what? I'd have a ring if I played quarterback for Sean McVay. But anyways, I digress. No, because their plan is starting to fail them because they're not hitting on those picks like they used to. Because that was part of it. You got to hit on those late round picks. You got to find starters and develop them.
Kevin O'Connell doing the masterminding behind the scenes.
Yep, and now he's with us, and the Vikings are 7-1. And I think we're going to talk about this.
That's why I wore this shirt today. Says Mr. Happy. Because we are 7-1. The Minnesota Vikings are finding ways to win. It may not be pretty. They go to sleep for, a couple quarters, but they are finding ways to win, and I will take that any day of the week. Hey, David, yes, it is Hawkinson. Hawkinson had a great day yesterday. He flies in, gets the game plan on the iPad, and then less than 5 days later, he's pulling off 7 receptions. Was it 7 for 70? And he even made the clip of where he makes a juke and comes across, and it was the see you later of our buddy and pal, Nick Olson, who puts that out there. And it was absolutely sweet.
Yep.
There
Say
he
hi
is.
to Odie, everybody. This is my big boy.
Odie.
I know Mary's excited. She loves the little guy. Hey, buddy. Yeah, so it's very interesting, Dave, this whole dichotomy with the team. And I want to pose a question to you because it's something I've been thinking about a lot. All right, buddy. I'll let you back down. Oh, good boy. The trade for TJ Hawkinson, we haven't had a chance to talk about it on this show because it happened the morning after.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the trade, and by everything that, just kind of talking offline and stuff, I feel like you feel the same way.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
I'm very intrigued by the trade because we've seen wide receiver costs go through the roof. A top tier tight end contract is around $15 million. You're going to get arguably more value out of a top tier tight end than you are going to be a wide receiver too, who you're also going to have to pay $15 million.
Mm-hmm. And he most likely will, by the end of the season, if you take these last 10 games of the regular season, will have more catches and more yards than Adam Thielen.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me to my question, Dave. I think TJ Hawkinson, by the end of the season, is going to be the wide receiver 2 on his football team. I don't think Thielen is quite at that. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's at that level anymore. And KJ Osborne has stunk. He has not been good. He's had a couple. If you watch the film,
he's getting open. They're not throwing to him.
I don't think he's doing anything better than he was last year, even by watching the film.
Mm.
Like,
I disagree. I see certain plays. He gets open. I see certain plays. Adam Thielen gets open, and the ball's going in a different direction. Some of that is just the ball's going to Justin Jefferson. No problem, right? Justin Jefferson is Justin Jefferson. He should get the ball on those. But there's other times when the ball doesn't go their direction and it gets thrown down to a stupid behind the line of scrimmage screen or something like that, when it's like, no, you should take the shot. That's the only one thing that's driving me absolutely crazy are those plays. And once they get those out of their system. Hopefully things will pick up. I do believe with Hawkinson out there as well, that's going to open those guys up even more. It's because defense is going to focus on Justin Jefferson. Well, that's going to leave TJ Hawkinson across the intermediate routes one-on-one, right? He can do that, but it's also leaving the other two guys one-on-one on shorter crossing routes or doing whatever. And I think it's going to get to the point where KOC has this offense telling the defense, dictating to the defense, you've got to pick one or pick how you're going to do this, but we are going to have out of our 5 receivers, KJ, AT, JJ, Hawkinson, and either Dalvin, and most likely Dalvin Cook out of the backfield. You got to pick who you're going to cover. And as long as Kirk continues to get more comfortable, he'll be able to take that read and go to the open guy, and we keep moving the ball downfield. Just like those first drives, scripted drives, we just progress to move the ball downfield. I think that is on the verge of being unlocked. And Hawkinson was the key.
Yeah. I think the one thing that really intrigues me is why teams haven't really tried to force the Vikings to throw to KJ Osborne. Like, hey, beat us. Like, the one team that was able to do it, because I think the script to beat the Vikings is relatively simple, Dave. Play man coverage, get pressure with 4, and be able to cover these receivers. The Eagles did it. They had the horses to do it. Teams don't have the horses to do that. Like, that's just not a thing.
Yeah, most teams
you don't. You can't just be like, okay, we're going to be able to man up across the board and be able to hold up. Well, the Eagles can. And I think, like, one thing you can do is what the Lions did. Bracket Justin Jefferson, be like, hey, you have to beat us with everybody else. We figured it out, but it was also the Lions. I'm really surprised that more teams haven't decided, hey, we are just going to make you beat us with KJ Osborne. Because I think that sounds like a smart game script to me. And that's not even a slight on KJ Osborne. He is de facto now the 4th option in the passing game with the addition of TJ Hawkinson. And why not make your weakest link that's going to be on the field regularly beat you? I'm just surprised we haven't seen a little more of it so far this season.
Yeah, especially with teams that aren't like Philadelphia that can match up against JJ all that well. You would think, let's move it over and then let's see if Kirk can beat us now with going to KJ. Thielen needs lots of love. Always he needs lots of love. He's been a great player for the Vikings, and he will continue to be this week. Adam Thielen went over his 500th reception as a Viking. That is amazing. And kudos to him. Only 2 people above him, and we know who they are. Chris Carter and Randy Moss.
Yeah, it was very cool. Not only that, Kirk Cousins passed my guy Dante Culpepper on the all-time passing touchdowns list. 136 for Kirk and 135 for Culpepper. And Harrison Smith has now started the most games at safety in Vikings history at 151. I believe that was passing Paul Krause. It could have been Joey Brown, or I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember. But 3 milestones were set by Minnesota Vikings this weekend, and it was pretty cool. Let's kind of dive in more to what this game was. Because one of the big things, Dave, that people have been talking about, and I've been fighting back on, is Danielle Hunter is washed. Danielle Hunter's not playing well. Oh, his numbers aren't there. You impact the game a lot more as a star defensive end sometimes than just having gaudy sack numbers. Yeah, of course you want to see the sack numbers. But we're not talking about a guy who has 0 production. He now has 6 sacks. And Odie, can you stop chewing on my expensive chair, please?
Donnie's drinking Knob Creek. Good selection, Donnie.
Yes, very good selection. Yeah, stop Odie, you little turkey. Um, Hunter now has 6 sacks on the season. He's got about 20 pressures, but he's also the catalyst behind Zadarius Smith's success. Zadarius Smith leads the NFL with 45 pressures this season. He had 9 yesterday against the Washington Commanders. And the reason why Hunter was able to get production yesterday, tangible production that people see consistently, sacks, pressures, tackles for loss, hits. They didn't ship him and they didn't double him every single play like we've seen other teams do. Other teams were so scared of Danielle Hunter, he drew that kind of attention. Well, he didn't get a lot of attention because they were worried more about Zadarius Smith, and they both killed him. So it's Odie, would you stop, please, you turkey?
Well, I've seen, we watched it with our eyes and you missed stuff. I've seen some of the coaching footage of it. And Daniil lined up wide on the tackle and he just exploded out. He was hand in the dirt, exploded out of his stance. The tackle took a kick step back to try to get in front of him, and there was just no contest. Daniil was already behind him when the tackle was trying to set his feet, and just literally blew by him and got that. I think it was his first sack on that play. And you saw the tackle, you could see it. I could hear it through the tape going, what the hell? How am I supposed to block this? That's how good Daniil Hunter can be. And I expect we'll see it ramp up. Those numbers ramp up the further and further we go. We've got a good contest this weekend. They have the opportunity to get that going. Now we'll see if Josh Allen plays or not. If not, he's going after Case Keenum. But I think that they can produce.
Yeah, and that's going to be really interesting. I wrote it up for the Vikings Wire earlier today. Josh Allen has a UCL injury. Now, for those of you that know baseball, you've heard of the Tommy John surgery. And so the UCL is a tendon that runs in your elbow, and when you tear it, you need Tommy John surgery, and it's usually 18 months before you're pitching back at a full level in Major League Baseball. It's much different for position players, and it's different for quarterbacks. But what makes things interesting with Allen is Allen's ability to throw at all kinds of arm angles and just throw with incredible power and pop. And he can flick his wrist, that ball's going 70 yards. Hell, he did that on the last play of the game against the New York Jets. And that should have been completed. Gabe Davis let it fall through his hands. Like, Odie, you little turd.
But it's not just the tendon. It's also ulnar nerve damage. And the ulnar nerve runs through over your elbow right about here, runs down, and it affects your ring finger and pinky finger. And it specifically runs through a little U-joint here, because I've had mine go, and you get what's called trigger finger, and your finger locks, and you can't open it up, and you can sit there and sometimes pop it. But what that does, if that's tingly, it affects his grip on the ball, right? Because you're gripping the whole ball. The pinky and that ring finger are part of that, and it may mess with his throws that way. That's why they may keep him out, because it's both not only the ligament, which leads to the Tommy John, but it's also the nerve that got. And if we saw the clip of where it got hurt, and the arm really isn't supposed to bend back that far.
Yeah, it's not, and it's going to be interesting to see how things progress with him. But two things. One, Allen has had a UCL injury before, Dave. In 2018, he missed 4 games with a strained UCL. And two, this could be a Case Keenum revenge game, as Case Keenum would be the starting quarterback. And unlike when he played for the Washington Commanders in 2019, then known as the Washington football team, he would have Stephon Diggs, and it would be a Minneapolis Miracle revenge game, because that's going to be an angle that's going to be talked to death over the course of this week, because that's Diggs. Diggs was traded, and then with that pick, we got Justin Jefferson. The rest is history.
Yeah, but that was Case Keenum in his magic season. Case Keenum is years away from that magic season. I'm not I'm not as, and they're not the only ones. Buffalo's a little beat up, but
Mm-hmm.
it's positive. I mean, if I haven't seen any power rankings out yet. They'll probably come out tomorrow. We have the second best record in the league, but don't anticipate the team being ranked that high in power rankings tomorrow. When you see it, they'll be lower.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because they're not dominating. They're winning one-score games, having to come back from it. They haven't beaten anybody of note, right? Etc. Etc. Everybody's under 500, yada, yada. So expect them to be down. I'm trying to remember who it was in the deal, said this will probably be our um, reference game to see how good the Vikings actually are. Well, the excuses are already starting to roll in. Well, they're hurt. Well, we got to start a backup quarterback. This, that, and every other way. I don't care. Really, I don't care. Just go out and win games. They can keep underrating us the whole season. We don't need the ratings until it comes to next year when they say the Super Bowl winning Minnesota Vikings come to town, right? That's the only one I want to hear, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where I'm at. Win a Super Bowl. And you know what? The Vikings injury luck has been tremendous. There's a gentleman at Fox Sports, I cannot remember his last name, but his first name is Matt. He has he's what he calls the bus metric, and it's an acronym. So it basically calculates what your score is based on how many games your players have missed. The Vikings are fifth in the league basically in injury luck. They missed Dalvin Tomlinson this week. They're likely going to miss Cameron Dancer next week, and that's not going to be nearly as big of an issue considering how well Caleb Evans played.
Mm-hmm.
And it's noteworthy for two reasons. One, Andrew Booth Jr. is still not getting any defensive snaps. That is not something I'm worrying about, Dave, because he was a project you obviously want to see him playing, but they have a long-term play for him. And Evans was always more ready now, but he has a lower ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Booth has a sky-high ceiling.
But Evans came in this last week and didn't miss a beat. He played extremely well. I will take that low ceiling if we get the play we got last weekend. Mm-hmm. Yesterday.
Yeah. If we get that play yesterday, I don't see the Vikings losing another football game. And that's more so the defense didn't break. Mm-hmm. One of the scores that they had was because Cam Bynum ran into an official, which very frustrating, very annoying, but the officials are part of the play. Like, they're on the field. It is what it is. Like, it's
Cam
annoying
Bynum
as hell.
Didn't run into the official. The official ran into Cam Bynum. That's what was so heartburnish about that play. The official could have moved in a different direction, and it wouldn't have cost the Vikings a touchdown. Cam Bynum had that ball, that interception in his sights, and it was very simple pickoff. It was the backfield judge that ran into him that took him out of the play. Luckily, it didn't mean anything. We still won the game. But if we would have lost, that would have been a big deal. I would still to this day credit the defense to holding them to 10 points instead of 17, because I give that other 7 to the referees.
Yeah, it sucks. If you remember, Joe Horn had a similar instance in 2001. The ref was like confused, like, holy crap, he was trying to get out of the way, and they collided. And that ref was Phil Luckett. And the only reason why people remember the name Phil Luckett is he was the guy who botched the coin flip in overtime of the Lions Steelers preseason game in 1998. But look, stuff like this happens. It doesn't usually get this high profile, and it doesn't usually give a team 7 points. But this is something that would have happened to the Vikings over the past 10 years. They would have curled up in the fetal position and died. They would have lost. And they would have been like, oh, everything fell apart after this point. And it would have been the same old song and dance. The difference with this team, they have a confidence about them. and it's given to them by their head coach. And if you watch the press conference from Kevin O'Connell, like, this team is, like, they believe in themselves. Management believes in them. The coaching staff believes in them. This is just different. It really is. And that's an incredible compliment to what these guys have been able to do so far with the Vikings. It's something that's going to translate throughout the rest of the tenure. Obviously, every culture has an end because it gets stale and, like, there are warts in it. But at the very beginning, you're having this kind of success. Look, it's a genuine good thing. And the Vikings are able to take advantage. And Odie, stop eating my chair, please, for the love of God.
Yes, Mary, we don't give up. This is what's wonderful about this season. They are finding ways to win. And each time they come from behind, they're building more confidence that they can actually do that. And yesterday was a big deal because they were 10 points down in the fourth quarter, and they still came back and won this game. Davey says this team has guts and resiliency. We name this, Tyler named this resilience. And that's exactly what this team is building. That they're learning that they can come back from adversity and beat teams, no matter who the team is. That's why I like them this year.
Yeah, this team is... it's got a different feel to it. And what's really fascinating about it is the fact that for the most part, it's the same team. You have a couple, like, lower tier free agents come in. You have Harrison Phillips replacing Michael Pierce. You have Zadarius Smith replacing Everson Griffin. Like, outside of that, your main core guys are all still here. And the fact that your main core from a team that we on this show, me specifically, I wanted to blow it up and start over, because I just did not think that they were going to be able to make any kind of turnaround. They proved me wrong, and good on them for doing so. Like, I have no problem admitting that that it was a mistake to keep these guys or whatnot. Look, I thought that it was at the end of the rope. You had a lot of high-priced contracts. You had guys going into the age of 30. Look, they figured it out.
Older guys, you would think.
Good for them, Dave.
And you remember at the beginning of the season, we were talking about predicting records. I said they could win 10, 12 games, but more than likely they'll go 8-1, be that 500 team, with the tie being against Detroit. I was thinking about that today. There's no way they go 8-1, not even close to 500. It's going to be a disappointment if, they don't win 12 at the rate they're going.
I will pull up my my overall record and prediction. I wrote an article, though, and I released it the night before the game started. And I will read it to you, what I thought the record would be. There are numerous analysts and pundits who have the Vikings winning 11-12 games and claiming the NFC North crown. The Vikings have that ceiling, but I don't have a ton of confidence in that. The Vikings just had career years from Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, plus former head coach Mike Zimmer did some things well. You can't expect O'Connell and Donatell to improve everything off the jump while keeping everything that was good at the same level or higher. There will be a natural regression and progression across the board. Expecting O'Connell to be some magic cure-all is just not a fair expectation. The reality for this team is that they're a 500 football team until proven otherwise. They are having to implement a somewhat new offensive scheme and a completely new one on defense. The injury luck on offense will not be the same as it was last season, and your two best defenders have had massive injury issues the past 2 years. Sure, they can improve, and it's likely you will see some improvement, but asking for that much is a stretch, and I predict them to go 9-8 in the 7th seed in the playoffs. Listen, when you listen to everything that I said, I basically said everything that they're doing wasn't a fair expectation. While it was possible, it's not plausible. And they are making it plausible by everything that they're doing. They basically just flipped the switch, because last year they were 6-8 in one-score games. This year they're 6-0, and that is a reflection on coaching. They have also gotten lucky with both injuries. for them and against them. Like they played backup quarterbacks already 3 times. They're looking at playing a 4th. That's pretty impressive. Like, I'll take that any day of the week. Now, if you remember 2017, the Vikings had tremendous quarterback luck. It felt like they were playing backups every single week. Or you had Aaron Rodgers breaking his collarbone.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if you can hear Odie. He's deciding to play with this plastic mat in the back, which he's not biting my feet. So.
Yeah. Yes, Raymond. It's Odie. We were wrong. We're happily wrong. I'll take that.
Absolutely.
I'll eat my words any day of the week for what we've got. And yes, it does go to prove the change in GM and in coaching, what a difference that change can make. And as our buddy from Vikings Report, Ted Glover, said this weekend, all you got to look at is when Irv went down before, Rick Spielman traded for tight end from the Jets.
Chris Herndon. Yeah.
When Irv Smith gets hurt this year, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah trades for
TJ Hockenson.
I rest my case. That is the big difference, Raymond. You are correct. Mm-hmm. Between GM and coach, the whole attitude and approach has changed, and it has made all the difference in the world.
Oh, 100%. I am honestly thrilled that the Vikings are in this position. This is not something that I would have expected from them going in. And this is something that I thought they could get and accomplish in a couple of seasons. And they're doing it now. And unfortunately, one of those things that is costing them is draft capital. But they're using those draft picks in a very smart manner, Dave. And I want to talk about that here for a second, because the TJ Hockenson picks, they gave up a 2nd this year and a 3rd next year for a 4th this year, a conditional 4th next year, and TJ Hockenson. Now, thank you, Ryan. Somebody did ask earlier. They're available on fanatics.com. Just go to the Vikings section. I when I saw O'Connell wearing, I'm like, ooh, I like it. So I bought it, and I also have a Gator one too that's in the wash right now because I love it. It's just comfy. It's light enough weight, and it's also thick enough where you can go out on like a 40-degree day, feel pretty comfortable. But the interesting thing was, if you look at the Rich Hill trade chart, which uses historical data to judge value, some people like that one. Some people like the Fitzgerald Spielberger chart. Some like more analytical based ones. I like the Rich Hill one because it's a little bit more player evaluation heavy, and it's more on the historical data by how good players are in certain areas of the draft. Essentially, if the Vikings end up with 2 high 4th round picks from this deal, if whatever conditions there are met, and I think the condition is if the Vikings if they win a playoff game, that pick goes to a 5th, which is fine. If the Vikings don't win a playoff game, let's say that pick stays a 4th just for this discussion. The Vikings only essentially gave up pick 69, which is the 5th pick of the 3rd round, to go and get a really good tight end that you think could be a catalyst of your offense for the next 5 years. I think that's a really smart trade because of what, one, a tight end means more to this offense than it does most others. Look at what the Rams do with Tyler Higbee. Higbee is a guy that can go out and run routes. He can go out and catch passes, but his value comes from being a blocker and being able to do that. Hockenson is an improved version of Tyler Higbee. And I think his value there is tremendous in that fact, Dave.
I agree.
It's not easy to be able to do both. Tight end, there's a saying in scouting where you are drafting your tight end for their next team. You just are. Mm-hmm. You're not drafting a tight end for yourself per se. Like, look at what the Bucs did. They drafted O.J. Howard at 8th overall, I believe, in 2018. O.J. Howard is now playing as a backup on the Texans. Mm-hmm. And TJ Hockenson was drafted 8th overall the next season, 2019. He's on the Vikings now. And guess what? You're getting a essentially a quote unquote finished product with potential to keep growing as far as how he's able to be utilized in this offense.
To move from the top of tier 2 into tier 1 when it comes
Mhm.
to tight ends. Like I said on my show, he's 25, a young 25. He turned 25 in July. There's the old saying that you draft a tight end for the next team. They don't come into their prime until year 4 or 5. That is normal for a tight end to reach their peak, right? And then you have them for the next 5 years at their peak before they fall off. We're getting that whole peak period for us under our control. We have them this year, 10 games for, if you want to call it, an evaluation period. Then next year, because they gave them the 5th-year option, that's guaranteed for $9.4 million. The Vikings, any time between now and then, if they want to, can extend him, and I expect there will be an extension some way down the road, and say next year, hey, we'll pay you $15 million on average, but next year's cap will be only $2 million because we're cash strapped and we need money. But here's this big bonus, and we're going to spread it out and blah, blah, blah. And then we have them for the next 5 or 6 years. I think that is a brilliant move by Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Obviously, KOC was involved with that. KOC even talked about how the defensive coaches loved it. And it adds another young core piece to this offense that will travel, keep the window open, and more growth over the next few years, which is fabulous. There's going to be some older folks that bow out, right, on the defensive side, and maybe Adam Thielen on the offensive side, maybe even Kirk Cousins on the offensive side. But we'll have that core group of young, outstanding people to go on and to keep us, hopefully, at the beginning, hopefully this year starts the dynasty. And we'll go on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of things in the chat that I want to address here real quick, Dave. Raymond, a little while ago when I was talking about the TJ Hawkinson trade, asked, are one of those charts better overall than the others? I don't know if anyone sticks out as clear-cut better. I prefer the Rich Hill one because it's more based on data of how players have performed at certain positions. Now, obviously, if the 65th overall pick does 10 times better than the 66th, you're going to average that out just because it's basically the same thing. Like, you want to see, like, hey, how much of a decrease in value you're going to get from, like, 1 to 12. Like, the Vikings went from 12 to 32. And, like, the Jimmy Johnson chart is a bunch of crap. It was essentially made up by Jimmy Johnson when he came to the Dallas Cowboys. And it served its purpose, and it gave a generalized value. But honestly, it was a bunch of dudes sitting at a table making up values. It didn't have any real concrete data behind it.
Oh, but when they made that chart, it did because it was based on how much the draft choice was going to get paid. And this was the time prior to the rookie pay scale. This is the time when Matthew Stafford gets a $50 million, or Sam Bradford gets a $50 million contract straight out of college without touching a football.
Right? Dave, that's not it. I don't think that's entirely true because when this chart was made, the salary cap didn't exist.
Yeah, but
this was made in like 89.
But it was back. Yeah, but still back then they were getting these high dollar. Why are you paying this rookie quarterback, giving him a $10 or $20 million contract when veterans weren't even making $1 million, right? And it came up, and I don't know about not having a cap way back then. I know a cap was instituted somewhere near there. It's one of the strikes that had happened. But that's basically the gist of why the Jimmy Johnson chart was made. It was a financial one. Then you get the Rich Hill. I like the Harvard one, which I forgot who did that, but the they're taking the value of the players drafted at each position, throwing it into Pro Football Reference and seeing their AV values of draft positions, and the slope is relatively the same, but they give it a different money value. It's less, or it's more. The Jimmy Johnson chart starts out high and it just immediately drops and scoots off. This one is a little bit more gentle, and it I think is a little bit more realistic. I know the Rich Hill one's along the same lines of thinking, it may even be the same chart. But when you talk about when we get into the draft, and we're a ways off from that, when we get into the draft and how teams work, they work on a variation of all of them. But generally, when you think of Jimmy Johnson, that's always the starting point, right? And it's going to give you the most value. And then they'll bounce back and forth and say, yeah, but this chart gives me more realistic. This is better. This is this. Some teams still use Jimmy Johnson. Others use Rich Hill. Some use their own homemade products. It's what it is. And to answer Raymond's question, there is no perfect chart that's out there that the league is exclusively using. Wish there was. Mm-hmm. I mean, there may be a perfect chart out there. Rich Hill may be perfect, but not all the entire league's using it, and they're gonna make decisions in what they feel is their best interest, whether it's right or wrong, and go from there.
Yeah. Oh, give me 1 second. I got Odie eating something.
Odie I will boy. Continue to tap dance.
Get over here, you
Too Evil to Hope, best values in the second and third round. Funny enough, Jimmy Johnson chart lines up with that. Well, there was a lot of it, yes, especially per dollar paid. There was. You should be able. I like the old CBS chart that breaks it down. First rounders you expect as starters. Second rounders you expect to eventually start in the first year. Third year you hope develop, or third rounders you hope to develop into the fourth rounders. You want significant special team players. Fifth rounders, sixth rounders, seventh rounders, you hope to develop and maybe get lucky that they contribute and can move into that. And then, if not, they're done after 3 years, 3.5 years, whatever it is. That's where you get that lifetime average for an NFL player is 3.5 years. Because those low end guys fall off the chart. They don't turn out. Can you find some that do? Obviously you can. You got Stephon Diggs, right? There's a big one. You have, the GOAT, Tom Brady. There's another big one. You have Adam Thielen, who was not even drafted, becomes a big one. There's always places to find talent, but as a whole, if you mash everything in the history of the NFL, it always starts at the beginning of the first round and then goes down, like a gentle ski slope. And that's the way you find it. And you can find good value in that second or third round, especially if you're looking for linemen nowadays, because the teams are valuing different positions differently than they did in the past. We can go back 20 years, and I remember when drafting a running back was a big deal, right? 20 and 30 years ago. We got to get that bell cow back, right? And they were going top 10. Now you're probably not going to touch a running back until the very end of the first round, if not in the first round at all. It's because the game's changed and how they value players. That's why quarterbacks are up there. That's why tackles are up there. That's why defensive ends are always up there. Mm-hmm. And top end wide receivers can move up there. That's what you're going to see in the first rounds. And if you look at it today, those guys are the ones that make the most money. So to link it sort of back to Jimmy Johnson, it sort of works out that way.
Yeah. I don't know if you answered this, Dave, but it was asked if that chart was made before modern NFL free agency. The answer was yes. Really? Get away from my cords.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
That came
modern out, NFL free agency in the what?
I thought the 84 strike was about that, I thought.
Modern NFL free agency as we know it started when the salary cap in 1993 or 92, and the first big signing was Reggie White to the Packers, 4 years, $16 million.
Yes.
that was the beginning of free agency. Right before that is when we got the Jimmy Johnson chart, which is, I believe, the 89 season. But I mean, I digress. Let's kind of wrap this up because we have about 10 minutes left, Dave. We got to talk about these Buffalo Bills because they're tremendous, but they are a weird as hell football team because they are incredibly talented. They're talented across the board. They've done a great job drafting, and their investment in the trenches is paying off completely. But Josh Allen is hurt. They have injuries. Tre'Davious White still has not played the season. Spencer Brown, the right tackle, has been hurt. Gregory Rousseau is hurt at defensive end. Matt Milano just missed the game against the Jets, and they lost to the Jets. The Jets are 6-3, ladies and gentlemen, with a bad quarterback. Imagine when they get a quarterback, or if Zach Wilson ever develops into a good quarterback, which at this point I don't think is going to happen. But this is a Jets team that could be like a Derek Carr away from being a legit Super Bowl contender because of how they're coached, how well they're playing, and the talent that they have. Because they have talent. They're just not able to maximize it. And they're doing so with a rash of injuries. Mekhi Becton out for the year. Elijah Vera Tucker out for the year. Breece Hall out for the year. And that's just on offense. This Jets team is legit. And obviously a divisional foe makes a big difference in these situations, Dave, because it's easier to beat a divisional foe per se because rivalries, weird things happen. But the Bills are incredibly talented. They beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, and they looked good doing it. Now, obviously, the Chiefs look good. That was one of the better football games you'll ever see. But this Bills team is very good, and they can beat you in a lot of ways, but they cannot sustain a running game. Timothy Slack says Jordan Poyer's also been hurt. Yes, I forgot Poyer. He did miss the game against the Jets as well. Micah Hyde is out for the year with a neck injury. That may be the end of his career. We genuinely don't know what his status is, but he could come back next year, just not this year. Neck injuries are a weird deal. We remember that with Danielle Hunter. You just don't know because it's your neck. It's not a broken leg. Speaking of broken legs, Lewis Cine is walking, and he's been walking for like 2 weeks. That seems borderline psychotic, like in a positive way. The guy had his legs snap in half, and he's already walking. That's remarkable. NFL players really are just built different. I had a blown appendix, and they have like my intestines were outside of my body and stuff, and I just have a gnarly scar. I wake up and they show me what it is. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. He's like, all right, we're gonna bandage you back up. Now you got to start walking. I'm like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, I thought that was insane. This takes insane to a whole new level, Dave. But the Bills are a really good football team, and we have the chance for 2 revenge games. If Case Keenum gets a start, it will be him. It will also be the Minneapolis Miracle revenge game because Diggs finally gets revenge on the Minnesota Vikings. And I would not be shocked if the game plan is just a pepper Diggs, and pepper Diggs. Outside of a few players on this team, there really isn't a whole lot of ties with Stephon Diggs to the Minnesota Vikings anymore. The guy who drafted him, Rick Spielman, gone. The guy who coached him, Mike Zimmer, gone. His offensive coordinators, gone. His quarterback, well, we all know the relationship between him and Kirk ain't exactly Christmas card level. But it's... Look, Diggs he comes across as a really nice guy, but he felt really, really betrayed by this organization. So he's going to want to stick it to us. And Justin Jefferson, like, I think Diggs and Jefferson are 2 of the top 5 receivers in football. If you were to name either one of them as the best, I don't think I could really argue with you because they're both just that good at the game of football. Like, Tyreek Hill's in that conversation, Devontae Adams, and you could probably put A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase in there too. Waddle, I think, is not quite as good as Tyreek Hill, but he is Tyreek Hill. The Dolphins have 2 Tyreek Hills on their team, Dave. It's kind of unfair what they're doing, and Tua has been very good. The Dolphins are 6-3. This NFL season is just weird, but they also beat the Bills. The Bills are beatable. The key for both of those games that the Bills lost, they were on the road. They've been very good at home. But the Vikings are currently 7.5-point underdogs against the Buffalo Bills, Dave. I'm worried about this game, but my worry is not wins or losses. My worry is about playing well. If the Vikings play well, I really don't care if we lose. It sounds weird, but we would go to 7-2, and we would have lost to the best team in football on the road in a close game. I can live with that.
Mm-hmm.
My hope for the Vikings is they cover the spread, be within a touchdown at the end of the game.
And the spread as of today is
go win
7.5.
And you know what? I'm not saying like, hey, don't go win. Absolutely try to win. But our expectations for this game should not be win or bust. We should want to win, but we should feel good if they just play really well against a great football team.
We'll see. It's going to be interesting because there's going to be weather. The morning before the game, it's as of right now, Mary and I talked about this today. It is supposed to snow. Snow is supposed to be done by game time. Wind is set at 17 miles an hour. That is not gusts. That's just regular 17 miles an hour. As I saw, that should be enough to affect play. I don't know how much it will affect it. I don't know. Field conditions, but it's not going to be, it'll be in the upper 30s temperature-wise at kickoff. But it's going to be different for our guys. I bet they're practicing outside all this week. Just get used to it.
Yeah. Look, I'm very excited for this game. There's been a lot of talk. Will this game get flexed? No. It would have had to have been flexed last Monday. With these games, you have to flex it 13 days in advance. And the only exception is the last week of the season. They make all those decisions by at latest Monday morning on when the times are going to be, because they want every game to matter if possible. So now, if the Vikings
the one that may flex is the Dallas game.
I think they would need to announce that in the morning.
Well, it may.
I don't know if they
right
will.
Now it's owned by CBS. It's the 325 game in CBS, which is weird. 2 NFC teams playing on CBS.
But do you know why they do that now, Dave? It's because that they're allowing the primetime games to have more interdivisional matchups. And because of that, each network, I think CBS gets allotted at least 2 NFC games a year for teams. So when
we've always seen them when it crosses division. Say if an NFC team plays an AFC team, yes.
No, but that's my point. When those games get primetime slots, then they get the 2 AFC or 2 NFC teams. CBS just did Bucks Rams. That's a new normal. It started a couple years ago, and it's honestly just to make sure that everybody gets.
But what I'm saying is, if any game gets moved, our game may be moved out of the 325 slot into the Sunday night slot. But there is negotiations behind that. That's, NBC, CBS, Fox are all involved, yada, yada. And how all that's going to work, and then what they're going to do with that game, because that game I think it's a dud of some sort. And we'll see. But this weekend, it's noon, which is great for Kirk Cousins. That's his favorite time to play football.
And he's good at it, too. All right, let's wrap this up. Hey, guys, I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank our great sponsors, Lake Monster Brewing and Badass Wood Art, for being so great in helping us out. And make sure you check out Lake Monster, because I think we're going to try and have something here later on during the season, and potential for the draft party as well. They were tremendous hosts.
And we've got things working, and yes, they were, and we have stuff to do shows live from Lake Monster, and they're doing great. And Tyler's wondering where Odie went.
Oh yeah, he's by my garbage can. He's a turkey butt. He is 4 months old, and he loves to get into everything. When I was trying to chase him earlier, I have my old microphone sitting on the ground in the corner. Well, he found it. I was gonna try and sell it. I probably still can, but yeah, he's just rambunctious. He doesn't feel super comfortable being anywhere down but in the main level of the house. So he kind of acts up when he's up here or when he's in the basement. But if I'm working on the couch, oh no, he just passes out right next to me. It's pretty cool. In the meantime, I want to thank everybody. Listen, the Vikings, when we come back here, could be 8-1. It's a pretty dang cool thing. Look, if they're 7-2, who gives a crap? They're 7-2. How can you be mad about 7-2? Just as long as they play a good football game, we will be very happy in this space, and we'll talk all about it. And then we'll be preparing for the Cowboys in 13 days, which is going to start, Dave, a 3-game homestand. When the Vikings return from Buffalo, they will not leave the state of Minnesota until they go to, I believe it's the Detroit Lions on December 11th.
Yep.
That's pretty dope.
It is dope.
And they'll have 2 home games with the Colts and Giants, and then they'll finish off with the Packers and Bears. And by that point, the Vikings games may not matter a whole lot, and likely their games won't either.
Well, mathematically, we could have this sewn up on Thanksgiving, but I doubt that's going to happen, but it's going to be close. But hey, folks, the Vikings are 7-1. They've got the second best record in the league right now. Right? Every other team behind them's only got 6 wins or less.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to point out that after I posted that the Vikings magic number is 5 and they could clinch on Thanksgiving, beat reporter after beat reporter was posting the same thing. And I'm like, nope, that was me. You're not stealing my thunder.
Yep.
They're good people, but yeah, it's just remember where you're coming for your Viking stuff, and the Vikings Wire and this show will have you covered 24/7. In the meantime, producer Dave, always doing a great job, and myself, and little Mr. Odie, who's eating my chair somewhere. Yes, buddy, you are.
Our next
have
show
a wonderful
will be,
night.
Our next show will be Wednesday for Vikings Happy Hour at our normal time, 8 o'clock in the evening. Matt's going to hopefully have a guest for us. I don't know if he does or not. I do know we have one the following week. But I'm hoping to get one for next week, and I have somebody in mind that would almost be perfect for it, too. Then you have myself and Darren as 2 bloggers, your pregame show, and we'll go on from there. But what do we say?
Skol Vikings, everybody.
Skol Vikings! Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite aggregator. And a special shout out goes to our partners, The Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found, and to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody.